You are probably wasting time in the gym and you don't even realize it. I used to think more was always better. More sets, more exercises, longer sessions, trying to squeeze out every last drop of growth. But over the past year, I've cut all my workouts in half and seen exponential growth. It sounds really counterintuitive, but I promise you there's a solid rationale. Today, I'm going to show you how scaling back your weekly volume can be the smartest change you make. We'll dispel the high volume myth, show you what the minimum effective volume is all about, and show you how doing less can actually give you more results. And by the end, you'll know how to train smarter and not just longer. So let's first talk about why more isn't always better. A lot of lifters get caught in the high volume trap. We see exercise sessions with 20 plus sets per muscle group, and it takes 2 hours to finish the whole session. Certainly, up to a point, adding more sets can mean getting more gains, especially if you're doing very little from the start. However, the response curve isn't always very linear. The jump from 5 sets to 10 sets often pays off, but the jump from 10 sets to 15 sets is oftentimes not going to give you as much gains as you thought it would. And then pushing anything higher than that honestly becomes counterproductive, especially if other variables are not considered for. And this is where the term junk volume comes in, known as extra work that adds fatigue without a meaningful rise in stimulus. So why do we believe in these so-called marathon sessions? It's partly because of the influence of bodybuilding over the number of decades and what people thought was possible with good enough genetics. It's partly psychological, where you believe that if you plateau, the only way to break past that plateau is to add more sets. The problem is that if those sets are low quality, you're not actually going to pack on much muscle. By the 12th, 13th, or 14th set, your focus drops, your output slips, and suddenly you're not really productive in the gym anymore. Which brings me into my next point as to why high volume fails you. There are two main points here: recovery and intensity limitations. See, here's the thing, your body only adapts to what it can recover from. If you just keep piling on sets, you risk outrunning your ability to recover. And then it looks like constantly getting sore, a lack of motivation, or even worse, injuries. There also happens to be something called a per session ceiling. Doing far too many sets targeting one specific muscle group in a single session can cause it to fatigue so much that towards the tail end of the session, you're not really executing these exercises with good technique anymore. Imagine trying to do 15 hard sets of chest on Monday. By the time you get to the 10th, 11th, or 12th set, you would probably have figured out by then that you would have to lift far lighter weights or do way fewer reps because you are just that much fatigued. Those later sets at the end of the session actually contribute very little to muscle growth. More often than not, they just contribute to muscle damage, more soreness, and again, worst come to worst, might even cause injury if you're not focusing well, which could happen because you're really tired. Research does indicate that there is somewhat of a ceiling per workout. Programs with more than 8 to 10 sets for any particular targeted muscle group in a single session tend to perform poorly than a lower volume workout. Another massive factor that we talked about is a lack of true intensity. When doing high volume, lifters often subconsciously pace themselves, especially if they know they've got a lot of sets to complete. Say for example, you've got 5 sets of heavy squats to do in a single session. You're most likely not going to go really hard for the first 3 sets because you're going to think to yourself, well, if I do so, set 4 and 5, I might not be able to hit the same amount of weight or hit the same number of reps. So that causes you to undershoot throughout the entire 5 sets of squats rather than give it your best shot. And so what happens is that you don't actually end up lifting as intensely as you could, and so you stop really shy of failure, not close enough, which means that it's not good enough to stimulate muscle growth. To put it really bluntly, if you can do more than 10 hard sets targeting a single muscle group in a single session, you are definitely not working hard enough. It's kind of like running a marathon at just 50% of your pace versus running a 100-meter sprint at 100% of your max effort. So a lot of lifters think that because there's a lot of studies that back up doing high volume in order to stimulate muscle hypertrophy, therefore they have to do more sets. But they're forgetting the other crucial part of the equation, which is to make sure that these sets are executed close enough to or even at failure. So instead of solving for one aspect of the equation, which is the number of hard sets, try solving the other aspect, which is the intensity, so how hard you're working in the gym. If you remember earlier on the video, I mentioned the word variables. And we like to call these externals, which are things like your sleep, your nutrition, your stress levels. All of this impact how much volume you should be doing. By the way, if you want to know more about nutrition, counting your calories and macros, and how you can get your abs to pop in just 60 days, then watch this video here. But anyway, back to what I was saying. A plan that suits a student who has nothing else to do but just study, sleep 9 hours a day, and work out as hard as he can would definitely not suit a busy professional who probably has a mortgage to pay, bills to pay, a family to take care of. It's not going to be the same. The student obviously can handle more volume because he has fewer commitments in life, or rather fewer externals. Rather, this busy professional has a lot more externals, a lot more things going on, so he probably can't handle as much volume. So what is the solution to this problem? Here comes minimum effective volume, which is all about training smarter and not particularly just training longer. Minimum effective volume, also known as MEV, basically talks about the least amount of work that you can do to get the most amount of results. The method is really simple. Do fewer sets, but increase the quality of your sets, which means push closer to failure. If you finish a set of 10 reps and you found later on that you could have done 5 more reps, that set was actually closer to a warm-up set than it was a working set. With MEV training, you'd either use a heavier weight or just do more reps until you're about 1 to 2 reps shy of failure. In order to gauge this, there are 2 ways that I teach my clients how to do so. One classic analogy I always give to my clients is the gun to your head analogy. If I put a gun to your head and I ask you to do as many reps as possible, if not I was gonna murk you, how many reps do you think you could really do that? See, the thing is, a lot of people assume that they are at their ceiling, but in a different scenario where it really calls for them to be as strong as possible, to put out as much effort as possible, a lot of people can actually break past that ceiling and even surprise themselves. The second and more friendly approach that you might prefer is to imagine that you were in a game show. In this game show, the host would only give you $1,000 more per additional rep that you execute. So think about it, would you stop at 10 reps then, or would you do the 11th? The 12th, the 13th rep? You would do a lot more reps because you are now incentivized to be as rich as possible. So use either analogy as you will, both are really helpful and both will help you to squeeze out a lot more reps than you think you could have done. So how do you do this? Just allocate a week of your training to be pushed to absolute failure. I want you to do all of your exercises, all of your sets to complete failure, except for maybe the exercises that uses free weights like a squat or bench press. Otherwise, if you're using machines, it should be safe to push to complete failure. Once you've done so, you would then realistically and more accurately know how many reps you could do for any particular weight, for any particular exercise. And that becomes your benchmark. So now that you know this, let's turn this into a practical step-by-step process that you can implement immediately. Number 1, pick an effective training split. Aim to train each major muscle group about 2 to 3 times per week. This could mean doing full body workouts 3 times per week, or maybe an upper-lower split 4 times per week. Full body routines are a fantastic option for MEV style training because you can just do a few hard sets per muscle group per session. And even if you end up missing a couple sessions throughout the week, you would have still hit every single muscle group of your body. Compare this to an upper-lower split. If you miss out one of the sessions in a week, you're missing out completely or on an entire region of your body, like let's say all of your legs or all of your torso. I personally prefer and prescribe full body routines to myself and to my clients because I do believe they're a lot more efficient, they're a lot more effective, and they're a lot less stressful to complete. Number 2 is to choose your weekly set targets. You want to start with roughly 6 to 10 weekly sets per major muscle group, such as your chest, your back, your quadriceps, and about 4 to 8 weekly sets per muscle group for smaller muscles like your biceps, triceps, and your shoulders. Now, this is a very general guideline, and obviously what's going to be an optimal amount of volume for you is going to depend on your externals and your own genetics. But again, it is a far cry from the 15 to 20 hard sets per muscle group per week that many individuals do. What's also really important is that you do spread out these sets very evenly across the week. So if you're doing 9 sets for chest in a week, you could spread that out to be 3 sets on Monday, 3 sets on Wednesday, 3 sets on Friday. By spreading volume out, you maintain higher quality and execution per set. Number 3 is to consider the per session ceiling. In many cases, you might only really need maximally 4 to 6 hard sets targeting a muscle group in one session. This prevents the session fatigue that eventually turns into junk volume. If you have a program where you're currently doing 5 exercises of chest, 4 sets each, which is 20 sets total, you're doing that in one session, it's probably time to rethink how you do that. I would take those 20 sets, assuming you're doing 20 sets, and I'll split it up evenly across the week. So maybe I might do 4 sets on Monday, 4 sets on Tuesday, 4 sets on Thursday, and then 4 sets on Friday. That way, every session, you're pushing as hard as you can. The execution quality is going to be there, the performance is going to be there, and you're going to reap the most results. Number 4, you want to train close enough to failure, as we talked about. Because you're doing fewer sets, this is a non-negotiable. You have to push hard, really hard. So you want to aim for that 0 to 2 RIR zone, also known as RPE 8 or 10. Basically, you want to leave 2 reps or fewer left in the tank. Again, as we talked about earlier, I do recommend that if you've never really pushed hard before, never really gone to failure, it is important that you allocate a week of training to do just that so that you know where your benchmark is. A lot of people get confused because sometimes they think they're pushing to failure, but they are oftentimes very far away from it. The key is that the last few reps of your set should be a grind. So how you can figure this out is by filming yourself and looking at the rep speed. Now the rep speed has to slow down because slowing down in velocity is very much an indicator of you approaching failure or even going past failure sometimes. And so training with high RPE might oftentimes mean that you actually have to go lighter than you normally do because you're probably not used to pushing this hard with the weights that you're currently using. Point number 5, you want to use long enough rest periods. In order for you to maximize intensity, you cannot slack on your rest. A major mistake that I see a lot of my clients make when they try to save time on their sessions is that they cut their rest time so short that their performance plummets. We're not doing F45 circuit cardio here. We want every set to be pushed to complete failure or close to that. And so a general rule of thumb for heavier compound lifts like your squats, your deadlifts, your bench press is to rest anywhere between 2 to 5 minutes. I like resting about 3 minutes for squats, 3 minutes for bench press, and about 4 to 5 minutes between sets for deadlifts. For the smaller muscle groups, the isolation lifts like your bicep curls, your tricep extensions, really resting 90 seconds to 2 minutes max is oftentimes good enough. Resting long enough between sets allows your muscles to replenish some ATP, well, that gives you back some of your energy, so that you can execute the next set with good effort and good technique. A pro tip to actually save a lot of time without impacting your performance is actually to use supersets. And so supersets are basically where you do 2 exercises back to back without resting, and these usually include antagonistic muscle groups, basically muscle groups with opposing functions. So this might be your triceps and your biceps, it might be your chest and your back, it might be your quadriceps and your hamstrings. Because when you're working your biceps, for example, your triceps get to rest, and when you're working your triceps, your biceps get to rest. And science supports this approach. Using antagonistic supersets oftentimes reduces your session duration, but it actually keeps performance the same. One study found that alternating opposing exercises did not compromise strength output in the session, yet significantly reduced the workout duration. Just avoid pairing exercises that target the same muscle group. Number 6, you do want to actually monitor your recovery. Even with lower volume, you still have to pay attention to your body's feedback. Ideally, you should feel really challenged during the workout, but you shouldn't feel completely wrecked afterwards. You should still be able to maintain or even increase your strength from week to week. If you find that you're still excessively sore or fatigued from a session-to-session basis, you're probably still pushing a bit too hard, and you should reduce the volume. On the contrary, if everything feels easy, you really never get sore at all, you're recovering super well, and you don't even really feel tired after your sessions at all, you probably should increase the intensity and probably should increase the volume a little bit. MEV training is basically like walking a tightrope. You need to balance it out. Enough sets to stimulate progress, but not too much to hinder recovery. You obviously also want to keep an eye on your externals like we talked about, such as your sleep, your stress levels, and your nutrition. You want to make sure that you're sleeping minimally 7 to 8 hours per night. You are consuming sufficient calories to support muscle growth, as well as ensuring that the other aspects of your life, like maybe your family or your job, is not stressing you out way too much. The seventh and most crucial step is to progress and make sure you adjust. See, the problem is people assume that because they are doing MEV training, they can just cruise on by and do very few sets and expect an amazing physique. However, with way fewer sets, tracking progress actually becomes even more crucial. You can't afford to have 3 low quality sets per session and then just call it a day. You want to make sure that those 3 sets are as high quality as possible and that you can actually improve over time. You always want to aim to add a little bit of weight or a couple more reps as much as possible. What I recommend is going for the 2x2 rule, which goes like this. If you're doing chest press and the upper limit of what is prescribed is 10 to 12 reps, so 12 reps, and you're able to do 14 reps, so that's 2 more than 12, and you can do this for 2 or more sessions in a row, and effort-wise, it feels like it's like less than RP7, it's probably an indicator that you have to increase the weight. If not, you're just going to plateau and never really progress. If intensity is truly maxed out and you stall for a couple weeks, then you might want to consider actually adding a little bit of volume, otherwise known as adding a little bit more hard sets. For example, you can just add 1 more hard set targeting that muscle group in a week. You want to think about volume as a dial that you turn up or turn down depending on the externals going on in your life. In general, do exhaust the lowest hanging fruits first, like your effort, your technique, and even your consistency before you consider adding more sets. If you strongly follow these steps, like spreading out your volume across a week, understanding that every session probably has a ceiling for the number of sets that you execute, pushing close to or even going to failure, resting sufficiently, using supersets, and actually tracking your data and making micro adjustments as you go along, you will truly discover how less is more is really the best approach. You're actually going to leave sessions feeling challenged, not annihilated. You're going to feel a lot more motivated. You're going to feel a lot more driven. You're going to feel a lot more clear-headed. And so sessions don't become an arduous uphill battle. So cool. Now you know all about MEV training and how to go about it. But it really only works if you're actually tracking your data and again ensuring all your externals are dialed in, like your sleep, your stress, recovery, all of that stuff. But let's be real, most busy professionals I've worked with over the years barely have time to even think about their training, let alone dial in their sleep or their nutrition. So how do you manage all these? So if you want to focus on just doing the doing and let us think the thinking, then what you want to do is book a free strategy session down in the description below. Because we'll see if we can actually help you build a sustainable, effective program the same way we've helped countless of busy professionals do the same, even though their life is super hectic. So if you found this helpful, drop a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!